Hi everyone, we're here with Glenn Edwald, Director of Strategic Communications at United Way Toronto and New York Region. Glenn is here to talk to us about the importance of building and maintaining a positive online presence. Glenn, it's great to see you again. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Glenn, so in this course we talk a lot about building and maintaining a positive online presence, especially for young people when it comes to looking for work. Can you share with us how you think young people can build this online presence to look for work?
So one of the things that I think is so great about right now is that there are so many different tools that are available to young people. I think about Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, I think about Vine, all of these different channels are available, and young people can leverage them to really give people a sense of who they are and what they're all about, both in terms of their professional work and outside of their professional work. One of the things I think is very important, though, is to think about all of these different tools and new media channels as needing to be complementary. So there's a couple of things that I would say about that. First of all, the way that a young person presents himself has to be consistent across all of those. You don't want a really professional LinkedIn profile and a really nice Facebook profile, and then a potential employer goes to your Instagram and it's totally wild and crazy and doesn't look anything like what they think you're all about given the other media that they've seen you put out there. So I think that's very important. The other thing that I think is important is to think about what is the tone or the character of the other content in that channel. So if I go to your LinkedIn, I don't want to see pictures of the food that you ate for dinner. I don't want to see what you did on the weekend. Obviously, that kind of stuff is more appropriate for Instagram. I don't think anybody would do that. I'm just using it as kind of a crazy example. But then also, if I go to your Facebook, I shouldn't see like a professional, composed headshot. Facebook is meant to be you and your friends and how you present yourself among people that you know. So I think you just want to have that perspective in mind. Whatever you share, use all the channels, and whatever you share, make sure it's consistent to the channel. The other thing is, and I think this goes without saying, use your head. Don't put anything in any of the media channels that you might use. Don't put anything on Vine or anything on Instagram. Don't put anything on Twitter that you would be embarrassed to explain to somebody who is interviewing you in a job interview. As somebody who's a hiring manager here at United Way, I can tell you that when it comes down to the final candidates, we look at everything, right? So we Google them. We're looking to find out what links in their LinkedIn profile to other new media channels. So whatever you put out there, whatever you present, know that somebody, if they're hiring you, is going to be looking at everything, not just the new media channels that you share with them.
Can you shed some light on using new media for personal branding?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that is so nice about the environment that we're in today with all the technology that's available to us is that you do have all of these different ways of showcasing different elements of who you are. As I said, you think about the content that's on Instagram, LinkedIn, and so on. It's very, very different. It allows you to give people a complete sense of your personal brand. Often when people talk about brand, we have an idea in our minds that it's about like a logo or something. But if you think about Coca-Cola, the brand is not just the name Coca-Cola, it's not just the logo, it's the taste, it's the advertisements, it's the polar bears who are like drinking Coca-Cola in the Arctic and that kind of thing. Brand winds up being about a whole bunch of different things. So the great thing about the new media environment that we're in now, that's different from what it was even 5 years ago, is that you have this ability to kind of like to show who you are and what you do on the weekends through photography on Instagram. You can do little videos and that kind of thing that go up on Vine. And it's a really nice way of giving people like a full perspective on who you are, a 360-degree view of who you are and what you're all about. So I think that's really important because these are the tools of today. It changes every generation. So when you develop a personal brand for yourself using all of these different new media channels, you're doing a couple of things. Not only are you giving people a glimpse into who you are outside of work, which is really important because one of the things that I know from hiring that I've done is often when you come down to two final candidates, both of them are very qualified for the job. And so what you are starting to ask yourself is, if these two candidates are both equally qualified, who is going to be the better fit? When you start to use new media, to profile yourself. You give people a sense of how you're going to fit. The other thing that you do, frankly, by leveraging all of these channels and putting content out through all these different avenues, you demonstrate that you are savvy and sophisticated about the tools of today, right? It changes every generation, but these are the tools of the environment that we work in now. And I think it's important to demonstrate to people that you know how to use those channels and you know the right content to put out through each of them.
Thank you, Grant. That's great information that you've shared with us. Now, you talked a lot about using different types of social media. And there's a lot of opportunities out there, but there are also some risks. Can you talk a little bit about the opportunities and risks of using social media to market yourself?
Yeah, so it's a great question. First of all, I think there's way more upside than there is downside, as long as you're sensible about it.
Yeah.
Now, the upside for me is two things. As I said, it demonstrates that you know how to use technology. It demonstrates that you're savvy about the channels. It also gives people a greater sense of your personality and who you are and what you're all about. So that the potential reward of doing that, I think, far outweighs any of the risks around it, provided you stay away from three main things.
Okay.
So the first is, sometimes people overshare. If you had a fight with your girlfriend last night, that's not the kind of thing that you want to profile on social media. Or you've got some kind of embarrassing medical thing that's happening with you. Don't overshare that kind of information. It's not necessary, and it's the kind of thing that it might just be a bit, off-putting to people as they see it on your new media feeds. I think another thing that people sometimes do, and this is a risk that you run when you're using new media channels like Twitter, people can sometimes be too aggressive. Now, it's okay to have opinions. And in fact, I think about my own perspective. When I look at people and their Twitter feeds, I like to see people who are opinionated. To me, that gives me a sense of who they are and what they're all about. But often, it can turn into people who are being a bit abusive, or they're bullying. So you want to kind of keep that in mind, right? As you're participating on Twitter, don't get into these crazy wars with the trolls out there. It's totally unnecessary. Keep all of your new media feeds, all of that social media channel and content elevated at a higher level. And then I think the last thing is, don't do anything that is embarrassing, right? I think we can all think of examples. I won't name them, but political candidates who have to resign from office because they did something embarrassing on Snapchat or whatever. You want to make sure that you're not doing that kind of thing. But for me, those risks of using new media, they're only risky if you're not sensible about how to use it. If you keep those three things in mind, right? Don't overshare, don't be too aggressive, don't be abusive, and don't do anything that's embarrassing, then I think it can be really rewarding for people and also really good for employers to get a sense of exactly who a person is.
Glenn, those were some really great tips. Glenn, do you have any other tips on how you can leverage new media when you're looking for work?
Yeah, so one of the things that I have seen that I really like is many people these days are using infographics and presenting their, not presenting their resumes, but complementing their resumes with different kind of content, like infographics and videos and that kind of thing. And I think that can be really neat. Not to replace the resume, but to be something that you add on to it. And one of the reasons I particularly like infographics, I think back to somebody who recently applied to a job here. They had a whole infographic that described not just who they are, you get that sense from all of their other new media, but the impact that they had at the job that they most recently came from. And I think that can be really powerful. Maybe the last thing I would say, or the last tip that I would give is, whenever you are sharing, either you're sharing your username on Twitter or you're deciding to share a video resume or infographics, do a little bit of exploration of the place you're applying to make sure that that is appropriate for the place that you're applying. Some places are very traditional. They might be put off a little bit by receiving that kind of thing, and so you want to have all of those tools at your disposal, but before you use them, make sure that they're right for the place you're applying. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Glenn, for sharing your insights with us. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone else out there has also learned a lot.